the casual fan versus like the hardcore or core fan of Kendrick Lamar appreciate his music for different reasons. And I think that when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, the casual fan loves a humble, loves the swimming pools, loves the DNA. Even loves all of the stars more than yeah, right. They love him that more than a high power, Black of the Berry, King Kunta,
I would
right?
love to hear that.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Soundbites, a part of the Album Mode podcast. We're talking about the music, the culture, the internet, and how those three things intertwine to create the internet culture that we have today. My name is Amar Grant, aka King Grant, aka The Weekday. I'm here with my esteemed co-host, co-creator, Adriel Smiley, aka AdrielSmiley.com, aka Mr. Smiley, aka Adriel. Adriel, we are back, and we have just come through and experienced a momentous moment in music culture. Kendrick Lamar was at the Super Bowl performing with SZA. Can you
Hmm.
believe it? We are
I can.
actually witnesses to Kendrick Lamar being a Super Bowl act and performing Not Like Us in front of literally hundreds of millions of people.
That happened. That is a real thing that happened. Yes.
So,
Yeah. It was a wild time. I'm happy we get to talk about it because that was one of those things in the moment as it was happening. Everyone was reacting like on their couches all over the world, all over the country. And I think going into it, we saw the leak of that set list because we were
mhm.
wondering, is he going to perform Not Like Us? I think once we saw what happened at the Grammys, we're like, he's definitely going to perform Not Like Us. So I think it was funny that was part of the performance was the pump fake of like, will he do it? It still was effective during the show, but I think at least for me, I knew he was going to do it the whole time.
Mhm.
So I wasn't actually thinking this is, not going to happen. But I like that he kind of hyped it up. But going into it, I think the main thing that I thought was, what is the set list going to be? Because once it was him and SZA, I was like, I get it. You guys are going on a stadium tour, promo tour. You're going together. It makes a lot of sense. And I'm like, would he do some of the songs that he did when he performed 2 years ago with Dr. Dre, Snoop, 50 Cent, Eminem, Mary J. Blige?
Mhm.
So that was more what I was thinking about going into it was, is his set list real? And what songs is he going to perform?
Yeah, I was thinking about whether or not we're getting Not Like Us. And even though we saw what we saw at the Grammys, I was still curious because, you know, Grammys, big deal, right? Big deal in the music industry. I would say diminishing deal overall, but we will say it's a big deal for sake of conversation. Super Bowl is a different level. Like it's like the Super Bowl and then like the World Cup is like the next level up in scale of things that people watch. So I was still curious. I'm like, okay, even though we've had a Not Like Us moment at the Grammys, can it be done? Can it be performed? Can it be performed? Because the Grammys thing was like it was just happening over the background, and people were saying the lyrics. But can it really be performed? Is he going to really go for that? That was my main question. I thought that ultimately Kendrick Lamar is a really good performer. I think something that's underrated as a performer overall.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's not his performances aren't bombastic in a way that you would think of like I don't know, like something like like Michael Jackson or Beyonce. It's not bombastic, but it's very
Mm-hmm.
very artistic. Lots of meaning. Obviously, it's Kendrick Lamar. So I did expect it to be good, but I'm like, is he actually going to do Not Like Us though? Like, is he really going to do that? That was my major question.
I think once I felt like he was going to do it, it changed how I looked at performance getting into it. And then something about the performance as well, Not Like Us, up 430% in streams after the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
And by the numbers, the most watched Super Bowl halftime show in history, 133.5 million people. That's 10 million more than Usher last year. I think I'd probably rate this in the middle in terms of the last two Super Bowls. Like, I think Usher is still the best we've had in probably a decade. And then I would put, Kendrick a bit above Rihanna. I
Hmm.
like Dr. Dre and the medley more than Kendrick by himself, but I think he still did a very good job. The other part of him performing at the Super Bowl, which I thought was interesting, is you said he's not kind of like Michael Jackson or Beyonce.
Hmm.
He's also not really like a Travis Scott. Like Travis Scott to me is more the Super Bowl. I guess he's
Yeah, he's
appeared
made for the
before,
Super
so
Bowl.
but he is the rapper who's made for the Super Bowl. And watching this with a couple of people at my house, I was probably the biggest Kendrick fan out of everyone there. But like people, first of all, sitting beside on the couch, not a Kendrick fan at all. They're like the only Kendrick song I actually want to hear is "Not Like Us," and this person's a huge Drake fan, and they said this.
Right.
And the thing we talked about a few times on this podcast, but I think it kind of makes more sense. I really want to like drill it down now. Is we've never seen this before. We've never seen a rapper's biggest song by far be a diss song.
Right.
And I think in a regular sense, that would almost be like something to go against them. It's like you're not even that big a rapper. Your biggest song is a diss song. It's like we only know your diss song. Now Kendrick has other huge hits, so that's not the case here. But I think in terms of his hit songs that people actually really like, not Like Us stands way above the rest of them. And I think like we had our own talk about humble and all of that stuff. But I think that came to root here in this performance because literally before he even started, the two people I was watching with said, I don't want to hear humble. I'm like, he's gonna perform that. It's songs 3, 4 times platinum. He's performing it, But it's like songs like Humble, All the Stars, DNA. The like casual hip hop fan doesn't love those songs in the same way.
Hmm.
And to have your biggest records be these songs that people don't want to hear, that's like not always the best for an artist, like performance wise.
Hmm.
But Not Like Us, even though it's charged in a certain direction, is one of those songs where it's a hit that people actually want to hear. And Kendrick hasn't really had one of those in quite some time because even myself, All the Stars, I did not like that song even when it was at its peak. Like, never liked that song.
Right.
Humble, I've seen him perform Humble probably 10 times now. Not kind of Humble. DNA, I like, but knowing that his bigger songs are some of my least favorite from him, kind of like hurt my excitement for the performance because I'm like, he has to perform these songs or the hits,
Yeah.
But I want to hear Poor Man's Dreams. Okay,
Oh my
I want
God.
to hear I want to hear Money Trees.
You're out
Even
here.
Money Trees would have been fine for me.
Money Trees would have been cool.
All right would have been okay for me. But
Right.
knowing that those songs don't stream even close to again, All the Stars, Humble, even A King's Dead, I would have been okay with.
Right.
But I think this was a performance that put that in light because a lot of people were saying, even in the moment, again, in my house, online, that they did not like his song selection.
Right. Yeah, I think Kendrick Lamar has casual fans. Those people exist. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that the casual fan versus like the hardcore or core fan of Kendrick Lamar appreciate his music for different reasons. And I think that when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, the casual fan loves a humble, loves the swimming pools, loves a DNA. Even loves all of the stars more than yeah, right. They love in that more than a high power, Black of the Berry, King Kunta,
I would
right?
love to hear that.
So that those are two different people, though. Is what I'm trying to say. So that's why I think that a lot of people had reservations about his performance because I mentioned that he's not a bombastic performer, but he is also got this dichotomy in his fan base that most artists do not. I think Drake does to a degree, but Kendrick Lamar, like Pull Man Dreams, that is you're not playing that at for the Super Bowl, respectfully.
Not even on tour, he's not doing it. I've seen
Yeah,
him 3 times. He ain't
exactly.
done that once.
Exactly, right? So, I would say that the performance itself, was really good. I liked it a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
think that, I am a holistic Kendrick Lamar fan. I like all the songs, or most of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I think for me, what was the major sticking point, or yeah, the sticking point was like, what is it gonna look like, right? And he basically did this performance where it was like a PlayStation controller. Like there was like a square,
Yep.
X, circle, and a triangle, and there was like a big screen in the background, almost like a video game, right? And you have Samuel L. Jackson uh being
Uncle
Uncle
Sam.
Uncle Sam, but a black Uncle Sam, and kind of like mocking, or not mocking, but I would say making fun of the people at home, because he would be like, he would be doing a song. The first song is like an unreleased song, and then the
Yep.
next song was Squabble Up, and Kendrick Lamar is like, yo, this is like, people don't want to see this. Like, this is too what did they say? Ghetto, right? And then he did like Humble and another song that I can't remember at this moment. But you could see like there was definitely Kendrick Lamar uh playing against the viewer, the casual viewer versus the core fan. Like Kendrick Lamar obviously understands. I think the biggest misnomer about Kendrick Lamar is that he doesn't pay attention to the internet or like the dialogue. I would consider Kendrick Lamar extremely tapped in, very tapped in, very very tapped in. But he's quiet. He's the lurker. Kendrick, Drake is the
Hmm.
poster, the person who's constantly posting. He's super user. Kendrick Lamar is the lurker. He sees everything, never leaves a comment. He's that person. So I think that the performance, he was aware of like what people are probably going to think about certain songs and why they're performed. And he was using Samuel L. Jackson. Shout out to Sam Jack for actually appearing in
Hmm.
this. I thought that was awesome. I like that him and like Morgan Freeman are tapped into hip hop and like contributing in a
Yep.
significant way. And yeah, so he used Samuel Jackson as basically somebody to play against, and I thought that was a great look. I love the outfits. How did you feel about the outfits? The black, or not the black, it was the white, blue, and red. How did you feel about that?
I thought that was good. I think playing on kind of the Americana theme
Mm-hmm.
worked well for him. I think, and something I said before about Kendrick that I think is interesting is I've always said like Kendrick is almost like I don't want to call out anyone, but he's kind of like that person who is like almost represents activism more than actually does activism. And I think in this performance, I felt like this was going to be a time where Kendrick would make a big statement. Donald Trump is in the building. There's a lot going on in the country. Like, of course, it's the Super Bowl. You can only do so much. But I think of how we view Kendrick and like his actual activism, that's what I think would be expected. And his only activism really was acting out against Drake. And I think, he'll almost probably never lose that persona just because it's so better how people think about him. But I've been thinking about that with him over the past few albums, where I was like, he's more kind of introspective and talking about himself and his experience and maybe how that relates to the world, but he's not actually taking political stances in the same way. And I think about something that happened on the field where there's a performer who had a Palestine flag who got dragged off the field, banned. And I think about it, I'm like, I don't think Kendrick could have done that, but I think of like Kendrick has never done something like that of that strong of a stance. He represents that of like, I'll speak my mind, they can't hold me down. But thinking about this moment, I was like, if I thought about when I was a huge Kendrick fan 8 years ago, and I thought Kendrick in Super Bowl, in my mind, I would think, oh my, he's about to make a statement right now. He's about to cause a revolution and shake things up. And I think the fact that he didn't do that and no one's really like talking about that, disappointed by that, it really came to my mind in the aftermath of everything going on because I said, it's almost like we don't expect him to actually be revolutionary, but we don't mind still calling him revolutionary. And that juxtaposition is so interesting just from all of us as fans because the music is still great. You can still be a good artist without actually being that revolutionary. But I think when Butterfly came out, when Untitled came out, when he did Black Panther soundtrack, if you ask us at that time, Kendrick Lamar doing Super Bowl, what's going to happen? All of us are going to say he's about to make a statement. It's about to go down.
Where's the
So
Black Power fist?
all of that. So I think the fact that there was none of that and the fact that we're not even disappointed by that is kind of like shown how far we've gone with Kendrick. And I don't want to say he's duped us because that's maybe going too far, but that like he gets to wear that persona without actually doing that thing. And the two things I think of is when everyone was saying, how come Drake's not talking about what's going on when it's like 2015, 2016, you know, Mike Brown, they're wearing those We Can't Breathe shirts. And J. Cole put that, I forget the name of the song, but J. Cole put that song out that was like kind of a long conscious thought, that freestyle, kind of like saying everything that's going on. And then about a month later, I think it was not Letterman, but one of the late night talk shows where he performed one of those songs. And it was this huge moment for people of like J. Cole standing with us. And this was kind of like the real, like, not birth, but the solidification of people saying J. Cole's a conscious rapper. Because I've always said
Right.
he's not that much of a conscious rapper. He doesn't want money, cars, and hoes.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those records and that performance when he had hits out at that time, that was like the power trip
Yeah.
era. And he goes on stage and performs this freestyle we've never heard before about what's going on in the black community. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's what we expect from Kendrick, you know?
Yeah.
And I think at a moment like this, when you're at your highest, it's kind of like disappointing, at least for me as a Kendrick fan, that it became more about Drake
Hmm.
than like an actual message, because there are things going on in the world that are not to do with Drake.
Right.
So I'm disappointed in that way personally, but still, I enjoyed the performance. I would give it a 6 out of 10. If I was giving it a score, 6 out of 10
Wow.
for me.
That's pretty low. I think it was like a 7. I think it's solid. I think it was solid. I think that
Six,
there was
six is solid.
6 is all right. 6 is all right.
Mm-hmm.
7 I'm like solid. You know, like this is good. I think that Kendrick Lamar, first of all, I think he's been trying to back away from the revolutionary conscious person type thing. I think he's trying
Mm-hmm.
to frame himself more as uh an everyman that is smart and understands things. Right? And every black man that is smart and understands things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, looking for him to be like that revolutionary in that way, I think is like misguided at this point. I think if you were talking about like 2016, 2017 when a Black Panther come out, 2017, 2018, something like that, then I would be like, I could sort of see why you're more disappointed in that sense. But over time, he's made his music much more insular, more about himself.
Mm-hmm.
And even the beef, the fact that it was teasing not like, he teased not like us like once in the middle before cutting to before going to SZA. And then he actually performed it afterwards. I think that is part of it where it's like it's more about like his music is more about him and his personal, either it's gripes or problems or stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and in this case it's him and his personal, it's personal, it seems very personal to me. His
Is it?
personal battle.
Very.
His personal battle with Drake. um and yeah, I think that it's weird because I think he kind of struck a middle ground, and I don't know if he struck it, but he was attempting a middle ground between the fandom, like the core fandom, and the casual fan. Because the casual fan does want Not Like Us, but they also want the humble. They want every hit that he has possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see people talking about this online, and even just in regular day life. They're like, "Why didn't he play, DNA or Humble? Why didn't he play like Humble like three?" I'm just being ridiculous about it. Why didn't he play
Mm-hmm.
Humble like 3 times in a row? Where's swimming pools? Where's Money Trees? Legitimately, and I think that those people are looking for like, yo, you're at the Super Bowl, you're supposed to do it big, right? You're supposed to do it big, get the band out, get dancers. I need to see Michael Jackson just stand up there and have people screaming at you for no reason. And then there's the other people who are just like, if you're gonna perform, you gotta make it about you. I want to see the, Poor Man Dreams. I want to see Black at the Berry. I want to see, I don't know.
That's why I think he didn't actually toe the line, because I think
Yeah,
he left a lot of his hits on the table. And
I
I think
agree.
like
He made
he
it a lot more
really
about the album. It was way more about GNX than I thought it
wait
would be.
and I think that's part of the promo of the tour with him and SZA and this
Hmm.
new phase in his career, because I think really you hit it on the head of like he's not that revolutionary artist anymore, but I think he still kind of gets to wear the crown of that and have that sprinkle over the music that he does now, but that really wasn't on GNX basically at all.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Morale wasn't really a part of that, and personally, I feel like that was a phase in his career. Like again, it
Yes.
was a run because it went from I didn't really see that earlier in his career as much. It was definitely more autobiographical and kind of
Hmm.
his thoughts on blackness and politics more than just broad thoughts.
Yeah.
But once he got to the Pimp a Butterfly, Untitled, Black Panther era, it was broad thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe you're right in the sense that the fan is kind of catching up slowly to the idea that he's not that artist anymore. I want to talk a bit about like what came out after the Super Bowl, after the
Hmm.
performance. Of course, we talked about the numbers. You know, he's likely to go number one in terms of the album and the singles this week, which is a
Yeah.
big push. But I thought about our own podcast. This is like three-dimensional chess in a sense, because
Hmm.
we're at home doing this and I'm thinking about our own podcast. But I thought about when we talked about the defamation suit with Drake. And there are two things that came to mind for me. One is that came afterwards, that A minor part of the song
Hmm.
was added noise. I thought that in the moment, and it's crazy because in the moment I thought that, but I said, would they really do that? Because that's a thing where I'm like, Drake has a case here.
Yeah.
You know, like that
Oh.
adds fuel to the fire for you guys to add that in to make it, you
Mm.
know what I mean? So that's what I thought about our podcast, because I said Drake really has a case here. If they're, and you know, it came out that they did add that, but it's like if they're pushing this even more, it's like, okay, Drake is not off base here. Like the
Yeah.
Grammys, they're adding the A minor.
Hmm.
There's something going on here. And then on top of it, I think like the push he's getting in sales and success is like Drake used to be Apple Music's baby.
Yeah.
You know, like and Apple Music putting on this halftime show choosing Kendrick, I think is like part of this whole negotiation going on. Because Drake being Apple Music baby, they would feel like it would be wrong to have Kendrick do the halftime show and, you know, kind of get at Drake in that way. But I think that something that we've mentioned a bit, and I think we're seeing it more and more, is that there is this kind of sentiment on the internet growing of like anti-Drake-ness, you know,
Hmm.
like it was already bubbling, and now that Kendrick brought to the light, it's like, okay, finally, you know, it's kind of like how you talked about Chris Brown.
Yeah.
And once the anti-Chris Brown sentiment came up, you said, I've been here,
I've
guys.
been here.
Join me. And and I think what I've noticed in the aftermath of this is the tide is turning. And we're recording this on Wednesday night. This is the 12th. We're 2 days away from Some Sexy Songs with
Hmm.
Drake and Party Next Door. But I see the tide turning in the sense of this is Drake's biggest flaw for a lot of people was just his popularity. And
Facts. That
people
is so true.
really hate it. It's like the more popular you are, people don't like that.
Yeah.
And I've always said, yes, him being popular can kind of like grain on us a little bit. But for all the artists that are as popular as Drake, Drake makes some of the best music of that group of people.
Hmm.
You know, maybe not best music overall, but of the group of people he's in, he makes some of the better music. And over this past year, Kendrick is now surpassing Drake in popularity. And so it's like, if Kendrick's telling us to hate Drake for being popular, it almost feels like now it's coming around where people are hating Kendrick for being popular and making his popularity about Drake.
Right.
And I think I'm seeing a lot of things online, whether it's TikToks or tweets, where it's like, Kendrick, give it a rest, give it
Yeah,
a
I'm
rest.
seeing that too. It's
And
been a
I said
year.
this
It's gonna get close to a year though.
it's getting close to you. And
Legitimately.
I said this to you before we even talked about the beef about Kendrick being the anti-Drake.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel way more validated in that every day that passes, because it's on people acting like Kendrick Lamar is like just popping up now. Like Kendrick Lamar has had some huge wins in his career.
Yeah.
The Pulitzer Prize, Good Kid, Mad City being a classic after 48 hours.
Hmm.
You know, doing the Black Panther soundtrack when that was the biggest movie in the world.
Hmm.
So for it to feel like this is like his coming out party, almost feels disrespectful in a sense. Like he was a huge artist this whole time. Like I know this is bigger than he's ever been,
Yeah.
but it's also like he's this big because of his beef with Drake.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the part of this that is really like the longer it goes on, is the more that we tie it to Drake.
Yeah.
Because I
Here.
think that one last thing, the one
Yeah.
thing that I think that I'm noticing going back to other beefs is no one's ever done this with a beef and stretch it out this long.
Hmm.
Like Drake make fun of Meek Mill at OVO fest. That was 2 weeks later. You know, Pusha T didn't even mention Drake after that. A couple jabs, but he
Hmm.
moved on. We've never seen someone be like, "Hey guys, I beat him 8 months ago." Like we've never seen that before. So I think that's part of what's really like changing the tide online in terms of people kind of stepping away from Kendrick and going back to the Drake side.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to Kendrick, I mean, you know, for a lot of artists and just people in life in general, you can have
Mm-hmm.
multiple peaks. I think that Kendrick Lamar and Drake kind of existed on two ends of the coin, where they were peaking at the same time, but in different ways. Like Drake's way of peaking was, I'm just going number one. Like anytime I release music, people, every single person on the planet wants to listen to it. And at that time, and I'm talking like early, this is like the 2010s I'm talking about. And at that time, Kendrick Lamar was artistically peaking, right? So not every single person heard his music, but people who did were like, he's the best, right? And then at that same time, everybody was hearing Drake's music, so there was a contingent of those people who were like, he's just the best. Everybody plays it, right? And we've been getting to over time, Kendrick Lamar has just like become more and more popular. People who are in the know are always like, he's incredible. But even if there was a wide swath of people that were thinking that and espouse that, he had never reached the same level of popularity as Drake. So there's always this like, just because they're contemporaries and that they've collaborated before, there always existed to us, me and you, and people in the hip hop sphere or just music sphere. They're on equal playing field, right? And they are artistically, but commercially they were not, genuinely, right? Drake was in a different stratosphere of anybody that exists that is alive on planet Earth right now. Maybe like Bad Bunny, but that's kind of it, right? But for us, music people, we're like, yeah, they're on the same plane, even though they were not, right? And I think that over time and like now, we are seeing they are actually on the same plane now. Like popularity wise, this is the peak commercially popularity wise for Kendrick Lamar. He's never been at this level. So like for people like us, we're like, why is everybody acting like he's brand new? Why did he like he just came out? Blah blah blah. For a lot of people, they're like, this "Not Like Us" song is probably maybe not the first song they heard by him, but the biggest song they've ever heard by Kendrick Lamar, right?
And
And
I think first song in a while too.
exactly the first song in a while because the masses. I mean, I think Mr. Morale went number one, but it's not number one the way a Drake album goes number one, where it goes number one for like
Mm-hmm.
7, 8, 9, 10 weeks, right? So right now we're seeing like they're getting equal to just popularity levels now. Like if
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick Lamar does something, it's like equivalent to Drake doing something. Whereas for us, they were always equal, but there was the masses, the amount of people that understood that they are equal was not it was not equivalent, right? So that's why I think it's getting to this level now where it's like, oh, we're getting tired of it, it's getting old, blah blah blah, because like everybody on planet Earth is seeing him on Drake's neck is like, okay, I got it. Like, we've been doing this for a while now. You know what I mean?
And we've never seen, and that's a pro. I always stress like in the moment we're all fans of the music, we're having fun online, but I
Hmm.
think there are so many things happening we've never seen before that we're not stressed on that enough. Which is like we've
Hmm.
never seen a rapper of Kendrick Lamar's caliber and popularity have their biggest record of their career be a diss song. Even
Yeah.
when Jay Z and Nas were at their peak, Nas is not doing Ether in concert. Jay Z not doing Take a Record. I've seen them both live. They're not doing the diss records in concert.
Right.
Kendrick will be doing Not Like Us until the end of his career. Like
Yeah.
that is just what it's going to be. And
But,
then the last thing before we talk about or before you go ahead is I think why the divide became so strong is Kendrick stood on the hill of I'm black, he's not. I represent
mhm.
blackness and he doesn't. But I think over the past decade musically, Drake has been more on that side, working with artists like Future and Savage,
Hmm.
and the streets
Burna
have been on
Boy,
Drake's side.
Wizkid.
Yeah, yeah, the streets have been on Drake's side,
Hmm.
and I think Kendrick has had actually more of like the white fan base, especially with all the accolades. Those are
Talk
coming
to them.
from white publications,
Yeah.
and so it's like the juxtaposition of like I'm telling y'all I'm the blackest one, but
Hmm.
actually my credibility is coming from white people.
Hmm.
It's like I don't think everyone's hip to that yet,
And
but I
also,
think
and also on
go
top
ahead.
of that, Drake is like, I'm not going to the Grammys anymore. They don't understand black music. So there's a
That's a
little
big
bit
part of
of
it. Yeah.
there's a little bit of behind the scenes, if you know, better understanding. I do agree with you. Kendrick Lamar's, I don't want to say his core. I want to say like there
Mm.
is a contingent of white people crowning him in a way that they do not crown Drake. They probably listen to Drake more, but
But they're not crowning him.
they're not crowning him in the same way that they're like Kendrick Lamar is genuinely actually, and I'll say this,
Mm.
approaching GOAT levels of
He
like actually greatest rapper of all time at this point. He's
no
approaching that.
he is approaching that, but I think why I mentioned the like white publication stamping him
Hmm.
is that's a big part of his GOAT status.
Yeah.
And it's like without the white publication stamping him, whether it's the Pulitzer or the Grammys, if you take those away, his GOAT status is not as much to stand on.
Yeah, because he's
Drake's
like
quote
he's not
unquote
selling as much. Not as many people listen to it. I mean, it's strong. I mean, he's rapping. He's
the,
yeah, super strong.
the music is good, but
Yeah.
it's almost like you're not gonna make most Def your GOAT because he doesn't have any bad albums.
Yes,
It's like
exactly.
it's more than just that, you know? And I had a friend say this to me, and he's like, he's on the internet, but like not in the same way. And he said to me in passing, Drake's on his way to being the GOAT if he's not there already. And I was like, are you sure? Like, you're
Hmm.
not seeing what's happening. Drake was lost, but just off like the actual music and how it connects to the streets, like that is Drake's case. And I think what's happening now is people are being like, okay, like the message you gave me, Kendrick, I was with it, I was stuck with you, but I actually listen to Drake. You know, when
Yes,
I
I
go out,
agree.
I actually want to hear Drake.
Yeah.
When I'm in the car with my friends, we actually play Drake. And I think that is something that I didn't think it would happen this quickly. I'm actually very surprised. I thought that Kendrick would have a little more of a runway of like stretching this out in a sense.
Hmm.
But I think that the people are coming back to that realization sooner. Is very interesting to me. And like going forward, I want to see how Kendrick attacks that because Kendrick's. I said this before. Kendrick is closer to Eminem than he is to Jay Z.
Ooh,
Like
that's a spicy take. Woo.
it's true. Jay Z has a few songs that will play when you go out, but
Uh-huh.
not that many. Eminem has zero.
Hmm.
And Kendrick maybe has a couple,
Hmm.
but you can go out many, many nights and never hear Kendrick Lamar.
You'll hear
You
humble
can't
though.
go that places and not hear. No, you definitely go and not hear humble.
You're hearing
But
humble. They're playing humble at the Super Bowl. You're definitely hearing humble when you go outside.
no, if you're we said this before, if you're hearing humble, you're at the wrong spot. You're at the wrong spot. The women in there are not the women you want to see if you're hearing humble.
You know?
But if going out and not hearing Drake is hard to do.
Yes,
Is
yeah.
hard to do. And
Just
so I
regardless of what you look like too.
exactly. And so I think like for the rules of GOAT to change like in real time, I'm actually all for that. But I go back to what I said almost 8 months ago now when we first talking about the beef. I said Jay-Z lost to Nas and still was the GOAT. And I think in the moment, the internet makes everything feel like it lasts longer and it's more amplified. But from what I've seen over the past week and just what I know how people actually interact with both these people's music,
Hmm.
it's like the actual how this is going to play out, it remains to be seen. But I think that Kendrick getting the approval of the white media
Hmm.
has never been the like mark of being the GOAT.
Yeah, but
And I
it's weird
think,
because he doesn't play to them. He doesn't
well,
like that. What we've been talking about, like how the way that Drake is like, I'm not submitting my shit to the Grammys because they don't appreciate black music, but then Kendrick always submits his music and always gets the white cosign. But Drake is making music for the casual everyday type of fan, and that includes white people.
talk rap fan, yeah.
But then Kendrick Lamar's music is super black, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a weird switch. Like that's so isn't that odd? Like that's so weird
No,
to me.
it's very odd, and I think too, it's like I think the rules are going to change a third time. That's kind of what I'm getting to. Is I think the rules are going to change another time in terms of what we look at as GOAT status. Because I think about it with Beyonce. She just won album of the year for Cowboy Carter. We agree,
Finally,
Cowboy Carter, not by any means her best album.
probably one
You
of her
know,
worst albums. She had way better
one of her
albums in the
worst
past.
albums,
Yeah.
and Beyonce is like in the Kendrick camp of white media loves Beyonce. Now CMAs is different. They don't love Beyonce. They got a little beef over there. But white media as a whole, anything Beyonce puts out, amazing. Chef's kiss, best ever, revolutionary.
Yeah.
And I've always said this is like Drake and Beyonce have similar effects on their fandoms and the city. If Drake comes to a city and Beyonce comes to a city, you see similar effects in how the city behaves. But the white media does not love Drake the way they love Beyonce.
Right.
And I think that, right now Drake is so popular that it's like you don't need the white media. So we don't feel bad for you that white media doesn't love you.
Hmm.
But there's gonna be another artist, another person who comes into that Drake spot where, maybe Travis Scott is that person now where Travis Scott is extremely well popular,
Hmm.
sells well, great performer, makes cutting edge music most of the time, can't win an award, can't buy an award,
True.
by any means. So I think that yes, Beyonce and Kendrick are deserving. They are great artists, but it's like they're not the only artists that are deserving.
Yeah.
But the way they win is disproportionate to the rest of the actual field. So it's like, yes, I like that they are getting their just due, but the white media is crowning them in a way that is not actually fair in a sense. It's like Eminem winning all these rap album of the year,
Hmm.
awards when it's like Eminem's great, but it does his best album every single year. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Here's one
So
of
that's what it feels like.
the things, and I think I don't know if a lot of people are I can't tell the temperature on this, but this is something I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
say. The Drake and Party Next Door album, that is probably going to be a table setter for a lot of things going forwards. First of all, it needs to be good. It needs to be good. Like a lot, like even though nobody is, I feel like nobody is saying this, but like this album with Party Next Door kind of has to be good because if it's bad, or even if it's like if it's mediocre, then whatever. But if it's bad,
Mm-hmm.
then we're looking at Drake like Kendrick actually ended him. Like we're actually talking about that. But if it's good, we're like
Then
okay,
it's different.
he bounced back. He took an L, but we're back in the mix. So I think this next album, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important. I
No,
think it's really important.
it's very very important. But I think how it's judged of being good is the part that I want to really stress.
Hmm.
Is like how are you
Good by who?
calling it being good? That's by who? Because for example, you didn't like P4.
Yeah.
Every time people told me they love P4 is one of their favorite albums of the year, I couldn't tell when people told me that. I don't know who have P4 on. You get what I mean? Like there's a
Hmm.
group of people who love that kind of sound, love that kind of music, that are not the mainstream. We had our own sub convo about how R&B is not the mainstream. Party
Yep.
Next Door's sound is not the mainstream. Most of his mainstream bigger songs are when he steps away from R&B. So it's like, yeah, the mainstream might not love this album, but this is almost like the closest you're going to get to Drake making like a straight rap album.
So
This is the closest you're going to get.
are we about to see a flip where Kendrick Lamar is the mainstream head, and then
That's
Drake is
exactly.
now the person who is like, I really just make music for black people. I'm not making it because R&B is a black. This is like the black form right now, unless you're making soul music, really.
Yeah, no, but I think you're right because you know what I thought of because again, Party Next Door is a certain type of artist where when they're posting these snippets, the comments every time you see a comment section that says we've heard this song before,
Hmm.
we've heard this song before, and that listen, I love Party Next Door, but that's just the truth. Like Party Next Door has plenty of songs that sound the same. That is just the truth of what it is. But Party Next Door, his first three albums in some part of America, people are saying that is like the go-to album for the after party.
Hmm.
There is no after party you're throwing on Kendrick Lamar. There is no after party where that's happening. So Party Next Door has no chance of selling what Kendrick Lamar sells.
Yeah.
But think about the people who are saying Party Next Door was a soundtrack to my 20s, my early 30s, me coming back from the club.
Hmm.
So he's kind of doubling down on the like, this is what we actually listen to. The
Right.
the hits is great. This is great, but because personally, I don't think they have a hit on this project. I haven't heard nothing. This is just me speculating. I don't think there's a hit on this project. Party and Drake, their hits have always been unorthodox and just been hits because of it's just two guys coming together who we want to see. But I don't think there's a hit on here. I don't know if there's going to be big radio plays in this project. I think it's going to be pretty slow. that would be the thing I think is gonna happen. So it's like the tide is turning where what are we actually listening to? Is it actually are we actually listening to the Party Next Door, or are we actually listening to the Kendrick? And I think that this is kind of leads into his tour with SZA because I'm very excited to see how tour with SZA goes because that's a bigger tour than Drake's ever been on, respectfully.
Hmm.
Like him and SZA, you can't get two bigger acts than that on a tour to go together. Now,
The Weeknd
most
and
people
Playboi
have
Carti about to be on a tour, my boy.
no,
Come
no,
on
no, no,
now.
no. Kendrick says is bigger than Playboy Cardi in the weekend, but um,
Is
I
it
think the
though? I think you're underplaying how popular Playboi Carti is. I
Playboy Cardi
think.
has never done an arena tour by himself.
I'm just saying nobody else has a greater
Is it,
influence on hip
is
hop
that,
in
is
the
that,
2020s.
no,
Whatever.
no, for sure. But he never even arena tour by himself. That's just a fact. Like
Yeah, because he keeps
maybe
canceling the
you,
concert. He keeps canceling his tour.
no, maybe you could say he could, but he hasn't. SZA and Kendrick both have. So we'll go with what actually has happened, what the actual facts are. But that's not, you can't get a bigger tour than that. And most people who I've heard say they are going for SZA. Now,
Wow.
Kendrick's a great performer. We both
Yeah,
saw
he is.
him as last tour. I think he's worth seeing. I think that's kind of disrespectful to say you're going for SZA.
Hmm.
I would think Kendrick's a better performer out of the two of those. But I do think that this is going to kind of change the tone of hip hop and the music industry over this next year with this Kendrick and SZA tour because I think that what they're doing on tour is almost separate from what's going to happen in the rest of hip hop. And I think Kendrick and his sound, not even just GNX, but in general, has been so singular from what the middle of hip hop is.
Right.
And we've seen it once in a while when someone like Chance will break through and he's very popular. But usually the majority of hip hop at its like most popular, best selling singles album in the club has been the Gunna, Future, Lil Baby, Da Baby, Roddy Rich group.
Hmm.
And Drake is more adjacent to them than anything else. So it's like, is all those people who love to hear all those artists I just named all of a sudden going to be Kendrick fans and SZA fans now? I don't think so. But this is kind of the moment where will Kendrick SZA win them over?
Right.
My
Okay.
guess would be probably not. But this is their chance to win them over. They're going city to city, arena to arena. Will that change and will the sound change? My guess is probably not.
Yeah, I probably not. I think we're entering a very interesting part of hip hop right now, part of hip hop history. And again, I've said this since the diss tracks came out. I'm like, we're in the middle of hip hop history. And I think we're in the aftermath portion now. Every history, every dynasty, every empire, every country, there's the story of how it's created. And then
Mm-hmm.
when it's on top, and then there's the story of like when it crumbles and what happens after it crumbles, right? And when it crumbles is very interesting because that reshapes what the next paradigm is going to be like. And I think that when it comes to Kendrick and Drake, I feel like did we just watch the shattering of Drake, or did we just watch, the Drake, like this is when I don't know, the Roman Empire split in two instead of when the Roman Empire actually just like got put into ashes, right? So that's where we are right now. I think that if Kendrick
What do you
Lamar,
think though? What I want to know what you actually think. Like, I think it's a split in two. What do
yeah,
you think it is?
I think it's more of a split in two. I think that Kendrick and Drake kind of just became, well, they were before this, but more so because of this beef. It kind of became like two factions, right? I think that
Lakers,
there's,
Celtics.
yeah, I think that yes, and I think that Kendrick Lamar is definitely like the Celtics. Right. And I think that even though he's from LA, which again is more of that, that intertwining weird narrative that they
Mm-hmm.
have versus each other. But I think that when it comes to especially Kendrick, like I think that he's kind of like ascending in this level of popularity that he's never been at. But I'm like he's also I'm kind of becoming curious of like what he has left to say for his music. Like I don't know if he's running out of material, but there is less and less things for an artist like him to tackle when it comes to what he actually raps about, unless he becomes more like you can either become more conscious or more pop related. You know, like staying in the spot where he is right now will start to get samey when it comes to his like just like what he raps about. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so I think that we're at like a split, and especially with you'll see with the album release for the Drake and Party Next Door album. I cannot remember the name of right now, even though it's
Some sexy
happening.
songs.
Yeah, some sexy songs, which is happening in my city. I know exactly where they took that photo, like
Hmm.
exactly. Um, we're seeing a lot of people online and just in person too, where they're like, when this album is going crazy, stay on that side. The Kendrick fans that were
Yeah, our boy Kyle said it too. I saw
yeah,
that.
they're blowing Drake up, and we're saying that it's over, blah blah blah. When this comes out, and you're hearing this at X and Y party, I want you to stay over there, and you settle over there because you chose your side. So there's
Hmm.
definitely a feeling of a factionization of hip hop in that way. That is familiar. We've had our East Coast, West Coast, Drake, Nas, but
Hmm.
now it's kind of just it's a weird scenario where they're two of the most popular artists like on the planet right now, and for it to be one side or the other is kind of weird. And they've also collaborated on music before, so it's like it's the same. It's like the same people listening to the same music, but then they kind of cross sides. Everybody's gonna be listening to everybody else's music in silence. Like everybody's gonna be in their room. Like everybody's still. I know you still listen to Kendrick Lamar. People are still listening to Drake. You did not just stop listening to Drake's music, and you're not gonna just stop listening to Kendrick Lamar's music. Like I don't think
I
that's happening, even when this latest album comes out.
I think though this is ultimately going to be positive for music because I think what I really, really realized from this is I said this before, like a lot of people are fans of the people, not fans of the music. And I think the narrative of these two artists almost became bigger than their actual music. And I think like that is something that is probably going to be, kind of crumbled now where it's like Kendrick as a revolutionary is probably not going to hold the same weight as it did,
Hmm.
5, 6, 7 years ago. And Drake being seen as this like pop artist with no depth is not going to hold as much weight either. Because I think for Kendrick as well, it's like Kendrick was more rapidy than Drake
Yeah.
always. Um, but Kendrick has all these songs that are, talking about him losing his virginity or,
Hmm.
doing crimes with his friends. Like it wasn't always like we're about to go march. Like that was not his
Yeah.
music, But the
Yeah, you
persona
could.
just grew so big that it was like that's what you think of
Yeah, I
when you
would
think of him.
like Good Kid, Mad City is like two steps away from being just like a gangster rap album, low key.
It basically is. Yeah, it
Yeah.
basically is. And then it's like I think about Drake where everyone had all this conversation around like it's the numbers, he's just pop, he's popular. And it's like Drake coming into the game, if you think about So Far Gone, like he's bearing his heart on like every single
Yeah.
record on that project.
Heartbreak Drake.
And so much of his popularity is from how honest he is with his fans. And I think like that's the part that I think maybe we'll come back to is they turned Drake almost into Pitbull and Taylor Swift combined, where it's like he's just popular and we don't know why,
Uh-huh.
when it's like he's been giving us his heart and all these records that people connect with him and they resonate with him, and I think there's so much of the narrative of both of these guys that we actually forgot what they're actually saying in their music, you
Mm.
know, and
Yeah,
we're just kind of deciding.
they kind of become like
Yeah,
NBA. It's kind of become like the NBA in a way. Like people are not they don't even
yeah,
talk about the statistics in the NBA anymore. They just talk about the narrative. They're just like
it,
Jokic is this Serbian god that doesn't even like basketball, even though Jokic has said multiple times that he enjoys playing the sport. And
yeah,
people like SGA somehow does not exist. Even though he's probably going to win MVP, like he gets absolutely no mention when it comes to like national media. So it's kind of become similar where we're talking about the mythology of the artist versus like what they're actually producing music wise. So I think it's an interesting dynamic. I think that it's worth monitoring. I think that we are talking about two of the first of all, two of the biggest artists in hip hop history, but now
Mhm.
um they clashed and it was a huge, huge clash. I cannot imagine Kendrick Lamar is pimping this song beyond, I guess, like the tour. He's probably gonna play it on the tour, but I think it's like over now, right? They're not
I
like
don't
us.
I don't think so. Like
You don't think? I think it's kind of over. I don't like you do it on the
I
tour, but like okay, and then like
I
how are you
I,
gonna do it
I
after the
get what
tour?
I get what you're saying, but I think like the spot, it's not, I don't want to say it's artificial. This is, he earned this spot of being this popular,
Hmm.
but you usually don't get this popular with having like so few hit songs that are like loved by your own culture. And the comparison I've been using to people in private is like when you think of Drake's like big pop quote unquote songs, like it's One Dance, Hotline Bling. You want to hear those songs before you want to hear Humble and All the Stars, you know? So it's
Right.
like Kendrick is in a spot where he has this one really popular song that actually like holds up in a sense,
Hmm.
but the rest of the songs that are huge don't hold up in the same way. And GNX helped with that with songs like Squabble Up and Peekaboo,
Yeah.
which is like,
TV
okay, they're
off.
not as TV off, they're not as big, but you want to hear them more. But Kendrick is still an artist where he has a lot of casual fans that they want to hear loyalty. Like that's still what they want to hear more than anything. You know what I mean? So I think he is still going to perform not like us for the foreseeable future. Because I said this before and you disagree with me, but I think I've been proven right that him putting himself opposite of Drake has only helped his career. And when he chose to do it with his whole chest, it helped his career even more. So there's no reason for him not to do what's been working of like, I'm opposite Drake because the
Hmm.
streets actually listen to Drake more than Kendrick.
Yeah.
Like if you're in these all black areas with black people, they're listening to Drake more than Kendrick.
Hmm.
So it's like Kendrick making himself feel like, but I might listen to him, but look how black I am. Look
Hmm.
at my skin. He's gonna stand on that square, I think, until it doesn't work.
So yeah, I think that's
Oh
how.
my. Go ahead. You sound so much better now. I think it was through the AirPods that you were sounding crazy.
So why didn't you stop me?
Well, I thought that was just the quality
Did
of.
the whole episode sound crazy?
It doesn't sound crazy, but it definitely sounds like you're on AirPods.
Well, everyone
But
talks about mic. I would rather use like actual mic, but I guess
yeah.
not.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think that I would say, well, he's Drake's opponent, so technically, opponent, the root word is opposite.
Mhm.
To oppose. The root word is to oppose. That's where opponent comes from. Opposite comes from. So yeah, I agree with you, but I would say that Kendrick Lamar still exists in tandem with Drake to a degree. So it's still a weird dynamic. But yeah, I would say, we're approaching a year of the beef. Um the song I am now crossing the line. It's getting old. Like I get you. I get you at the Super Bowl. No, I get it at the Super Bowl. Like I get why he did that. That makes total sense to me. It's still a little bit unbelievable that he did not like us at the Super Bowl. Like if you really think about that, that's still kind of crazy. Um, but that to me feels like the culmination of that song. Like I took the beef and winning the beef to the second largest platform you can
It's
put it on,
it's
basically.
full circle. The hook of first person shooter is big as the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So it really is full circle. But last thing before we go, because I think I've exhausted all my Kendrick Lamar thoughts. Next time you think about him performing not like us, think about everyone Drake has beefs with.
Yeah.
Are they are they doing their Drake diss songs? Is Drake performing
Mm.
the story of Adidon? Yes, not like us was a huge hit, but I think that there's a lot of artists who have huge hits that they do not perform
Great.
for.
True.
So I think that is how I'm looking at it. Is like Pusha T would look crazy performing the story of Adidon. It just would not things like it's like Drake is not doing back to back in his set in Australia right now.
Hmm.
Even though back to back was a huge song and a hit, he's not doing back to back. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
So that is how I'm looking at it. Where it's like the Super Bowl should be the end. maybe the tour will be the end.
Yeah.
But if I'm seeing this song being dragged out every night on social media,
Yeah, I'm over it.
it's not gonna look good for him.
Yeah, I'm over it now. I think, and nobody's saying that Kendrick lost. I mean, there are delusional people who are saying that he lost somehow, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I can't believe you made this whole like you know that Drake won the beef when Kendrick Lamar is performing this song on the Super Bowl. You make your whole Super Bowl performance about another man. Blah, blah. You're ridiculous." Okay, all sane people who actually have a brain inside of the skull
Kendrick won. Like
understand that Kendrick Lamar won the beef. Um, but like we get it. You won Super Bowl. I 1000% understand. 1000%. I would have done that shit too. I would have done that shit too if I had the opportunity to. Um, so I get it. But we're approaching a year now. Like it's getting like we got other things. I mean, there's other music coming out. Jorja Smith just dropped a new song with AJ Tracey, proving my idea right. And I think
thank you for listening to
I'm
album.
gonna I'm gonna just propose something in the future. We should probably do a soundbite or just like an episode about like artists that we think are making the wrong genre of music, and I think that'd be an interesting conversation.
Jorja Smith is not included in this. She's making the music you want her to make. You just want her to make more of it.
I think she's making R&B albums when she should be making either rap albums or house albums,
No, but
legitimately. So
I know that you think that, but I'm saying like you just have a problem with her R&B. This applies to almost every artist. It's like when Drake was R&B and everyone goes, "I want Drake to just rap. Why is he making R&B?" Or like when The Weeknd makes these pop songs and they go, "Why are you making these pop songs still? Go back to singing dark." It's the same thing.
those
It's the
people
same thing.
people that you're talking about innovated their genre in some sort of way. I'm not getting that from Jorja Smith's music. I'm not getting
Well,
innovation.
because she didn't innovate her genre, she hasn't earned the right to make R&B music.
No, but I'm just saying it's getting a little passe, respectfully. And you got interesting things happening in other genres. That's really the thing for me.
But she does both. That's the thing. If you only like the dance, listen to the dance, enjoy it.
Not enough though. She needs to do honestly never mind
I
for
think
her.
you're not familiar
I
enough
think an
with
honestly never mind for her would change her career. I think I'm not even joking on that. I think an honestly never mind type of pivot from her
I
would change her
I
career.
get where you're coming from, but I'm saying like you're not familiar enough with her catalog that I think
I
that's why you're
am
saying
though. I
because
am.
no, but she has so many of those songs that I would. It's like when Drake Johnson never mind, he'd never done that before.
Hmm.
She has so many songs like that already, so you can make your own playlist of Jorja Smith dance songs and call it a day.
Okay. Well,
Simple
we'll
as
see.
that.
Thank you everybody for tuning into Sound Bites, part of the Album One podcast. Where we're talking about the music, the culture, the internet, and the lawsuits that are included and make up the music culture that we exist in today. Adriel, we're out of here. Make sure you know yourself and know your worth.
There it is.
Okay, sweet.